Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad you can join me here today. Recently, I read one of the most powerful and life-changing books I've ever read in my life. This book has, I think, the potential to literally change lives. It has changed my life and my outlook. And I think I'd love to be able for more people to read this book because I know the transformation it can create in your lives. This is the book by Michael Singer called The Surrender Experiment. He's written another book called The Untethered Soul, which came out before this book. It's actually a New York Times bestseller as well. But I think personally, I resonated more with this book, and I found this book more powerful, even though The Untethered Soul is such a powerful book. So this is a book about Michael Singer's life, or Mickey Singer as people call him. And he basically explains and describes the events that happen in his life, but the events that are just mind-boggling on how these things happened when he just had an experiment. What he did was he decided to surrender himself and see what his life brings. And oh my God, the things that happened in his life are just you can't understand how these things happen just by surrendering. So let me just briefly explain and describe what he talks about. So the first chapter that he talks about is, he titles the chapter Waking Up. So in this chapter, he talks about how he was sitting with his brother-in-law, and this is the life-changing moment that happened for him. And as he was sitting there was a moment of silence. So imagine this, you're sitting with someone, and there's like a 10-15 second gap. There's silence, nothing. And in that moment, a thought came to his mind. He thought to himself, I can hear the voice in my head. It's a whisper. It's telling me something. But it's there. It's there. It's talking to me. What is this voice? Why is it talking to me? I've never noticed it before. He never noticed it before because it was there. It's always telling him to do things, but he never paid attention to it. But it's always there. It's always there. And when you sit down quietly, you hear that voice. When you're too busy doing stuff and talking and interacting with people, the voice just gets subdued and you can't hear it. But when you slow down and you relax and you sit on your own or in silence, those thoughts come back. The voice comes back. And he asked himself, what is this voice? So he asked his brother-in-law. And his brother-in-law thought for a second and thought, yes, I think I have that as well. And he thought nothing of it. But Michael Singer said that was a time when his life literally changed. So that's when he went on a journey where he said this voice, this inner voice, which is a whisper. It's like a whisper. He wanted to discover what it is. And that's when he started learning about Zen, Buddhism, getting to absolute silence, and basically going through a journey where he went to Mexico and just backpacked and just let everything flow. All he wanted to do was just discover what his mind was telling, what this voice was in his mind. He just wanted to know that. And he surrendered to that. He said, let me just listen to what it's saying. And it became louder, it became more empathetic. It was always there. And he was noticing it. He was doing a PhD at that time in economics at a university. And he decided that he did not want to study because that he wanted to focus his life on this journey where he was trying to discover who he is. And then he found a plot of land that he thought that he could buy because it was a derelict land and no one was there, and he thought it'd be a nice place to go because it's out in the countryside and he could focus on that. And he found out that the price of the land was, I think, about $15,000, which was almost exactly the amount of money that his father had left to him. It was just meant to be. And he bought a plot of land, and that's where his life literally changed. The second chapter that he talks about is he calls it the Great Experiment Begins. And this is where he decided to let life be. He surrendered. As it came, he found people squatting in his house, in an outhouse that he didn't know about, and he thought, okay, this is an experiment. Let me see what life tells me. Oh, someone convinced him to become to teach at a college, and he really didn't want to do it, but they pushed him and they pushed him, and he thought, okay, you know what? If this is what life is telling me, I'll go with it. And someone asked him to visit a prison. One of his friends was supposed to do it, but he couldn't do it, so he asked Mickey Singer to do it. And Mickey was hesitant at first, but he thought, you know what? I'm giving into the universe. If it's there, I'll do it. And that literally transformed all of these small events. It's funny how we don't realize how small events can lead to huge changes in one's life. You just make a small decision and your whole life opens up. His decision was to surrender, and his whole life just got charted out. As he went through his journey of going inward, something came up again and again, and this is what chapter 3 is about. Chapter 3 is called From Solitude to Service. He realized that even though the more he wanted to go in and discover himself and these thoughts and this voice, life was pushing him out to service. And he wasn't sure why this is happening. But then he thought, this is what it's all about. Chapter 4 is called The Business of Surrender, which is the whole point of surrendering yourself is as it comes. Even though you want to go inward, this is your journey that you want to take. If life is taking you a certain way, then you surrender and see what it has to show for you. You can't just dismiss it without knowing what it is telling you. And then he continues his journey as it's so funny how small things one thing leads to another. He goes to his local DVD store or whatever, and he discovers his first personal computer. And every week he came back, it was like he was calling to him, and he thought, hold on, this is calling to me. Maybe I should do something with it. So he spent $600 and he took that computer home, and then he taught himself coding. And he when he was coding, he was in a state of flow. And one thing led to the other, and he started coding for different things, different people. He also started a landscaping business at the same time. So he was built with love is what he called it. And he would help people do some renovation projects when they required it. And he went on this journey of discovering all of these things. It came back to service. It all came back to service. That's why Built with Love, for example, his construction company, is all about giving your best to whatever he's doing, to whatever you're doing, and then just letting it be, because you gave it your best, and that's all you need to do. But then as things progress, his next chapter is called Something Priceless is Born. And that's when he realizes that his gift of computer coding has taken him so far that he built one of the first medical insurance packages, computer packages, that wasn't done properly before, but he built something, and then a huge mega supplier decided to supply it, and then he got a job, and eventually he started going through his journey. He says the forces of natural growth. It's just business after business. The temple keeps on growing. His business starts growing. And then even when there are difficult times, one of his chapters is called When Dark Clouds Become Rainbows. He decided there was something happening where he was told that because his business is on the ranch outside, he could not legally have a business there. They would have to shut it down, but he needs to get a plot of land towards the more urban areas or whatever. And he thought to himself, this is a difficulty. This is a big problem. But you know what? We have surrendered. So whatever happens, we will submit to it as it is. And then he talks about a touch of magic, how things just happen. There was I think a plot of land that was supposed to be used. There were trees that were supposed to be felled out, and it was used to have a garbage disposal place or whatever. And the people of the town were very unhappy about it, so they protested, and one thing led to the other. The mayor said, okay, you know what, we wouldn't do that. And because of that plot of land came under sale. And because he'd done really well in his temple or whatever, he had enough money to buy the plot of land, which was the perfect distance where he could actually build his business. But it just shows how when you leave things to life, to the universe, for me, to God, if you just surrender, things will just fall into place one by one. You just have to surrender. Things happen, things are difficult, things you go through stuff in life, but as long as you surrender, you will be fine, because life will just help you move you across the bar. You will just keep on going and going. And as things come, when dark clouds come, they become rainbows. That's what he's saying. Dark clouds become rainbows. And then the next chapter is called embracing explosive expansion. So whatever came his way, even with business, he was made the CEO. He became the CEO of his business because there was a merger that was happening. Things happened, and he just went with the flow as it would happen. But then life took such a tumultuous turn. Like life took such a nasty turn for him. Basically, this was while he was actually writing the Untethered Soul. There was a court case that was brought against him, and he was at a car park in a shopping mall or somewhere, and he got a call telling him to come back to the office because there were like 50 FBI agents or CIA agents had shown up with lots of police cars, and they were asking for him. Now imagine that scenario. So he thought, no, there must be a mistake. So on the drive there, he was thinking there must be a mistake. And then when he reached there, he saw all those cars parked in front of it that blocked off the office. They told all the employees to go back home. This is the FBI, the CIA. And apparently he was a wanted man. But he had done nothing wrong, but he was a wanted man. This is just the way it is. That's when he surrendered. So it turned out that one of his employees was embezzling money, and Michael Singer had found him out, and he found a lot of evidence. So to cover their backs, they went to the police and handed themselves in, saying that we've done this, but it was under the proviso of Michael Singer, who's a CEO, and everyone else in the senior management who are aware of this, and they let it happen. So he was let free because he obviously admitted to it. But Michael Singer was the one who went to court. He had to go through a whole legal battle. He had to do everything. But then, all through all of this, while he's talking all about this is under the last chapter. And let me show you what the last chapter is called. The last chapter is called Total Surrender. If there was one point in someone's life, if I was Michael Singer, the one point, the darkest point in my life would be this: when you are in the public eye, you are forced to go to court for a crime you did not commit, and you have to go through hearings and go through this whole turmoil and mental pressure. But what does he do? He says total surrender. That's when he just surrendered to whatever came his way. And he won the case. The judge dismissed it. There was a lot of things. If you have to read the book. I can't emphasize enough how much you have to read the book. But he goes through what complications went through, and then one by one things just fell into place slowly, because he just surrendered. There was a point in the book where he was saying that he had met, because he was a CEO, and then the board of directors had called a meeting at a certain location. So he had met with them over a 2-3 day conference. So the first day they were all talking about everything, about the business and why it wasn't doing as well as it should have been, whatever. But then his secretary and him presented a really compelling case that the business is actually doing very well. That evening, before he went, Michael Singer went back to the conference room and realized on the conference room there were things stuck on the wall of people's employees' names, and basically the task for the next day was to justify why these employees should stay, because they wanted to cut down employees. And this hit him hard because he did not want to let anyone go, because they were doing so well, and as a CEO he did not want anyone to be let go. But obviously the board of directors controls everything. But when he went back to the hotel, to his hotel room, he told himself, okay, I have two choices: either to think about this and burn myself and worry about it, or I can just leave it. I can surrender. Whatever happens tomorrow will happen. It's just the way it is. He goes back the next day, and the walls are empty of the conference room. There were no papers there. And he's surprised. He's like, what's happening? And then he realized that even the board of directors who were supposed to be there, none of them were there. So he spoke to the senior management from who were part of the board of directors as well, but not part of the board, but they were traveling with them. They say basically they were very impressed with the presentation they had the previous day, and they decided that there was no need to cut jobs. There was no need to cut any employees out of the business, and things will be just the way they are. And because there's nothing else to discuss, they just left early, caught a flight home. Um, and someone called Mickey Singer and said, "What have you done?" Because this guy, Marv, I think his name was Marv, he was like the chief. He always goes to a location to be able to cut costs, and employee reduction is one of the first things he does. And she was surprised at what Mickey did to stop him from doing it. But you shouldn't be surprised. That's what I strongly believe now after reading this book. Because when you surrender, whatever is meant to happen will happen, because you are no longer fighting with the universe. You're no longer fighting with God. You have surrendered to God. And you know whatever is going to happen will happen. You fighting it or not fighting it will not make a difference whatsoever. And it's so funny how his life just took a turn. When he had left the business, he retired as a CEO. He went back to the temple and did what he did before. And his last chapter, his second last chapter, is called Divine Intervention, where he won the case. And his last chapter is Return to the Beginning. So he went back to what he was doing, which was looking inwards. He was giving talks in the temple that he created, teaching people about what the surrender experiment is about, and doing the things that he loved in the act of service. But life made him go through all of that to teach him a lesson. Now, I'd like to end with something that I found really powerful, and this is the kind of power books like this have, because he realized, remember, so one of the things I said in the third chapter, he called it from solitude to service. So he actually wanted to go inwards, but life kept him pushing towards service. And because he surrendered, he let go, he allowed it to happen, because he knew that this was what he had to do. I'd like to read a chapter. So this is where, this is one of the situations where there's a conflict, and him as a CEO and Marv, who was the head of the board or whatever he was, they had to go. And because one of the divisions wasn't doing well, they had to meet the demands of the senior executive. And the senior executive said that they had demands, that they want to be paid more and rewarded handsomely, or they will quit. And Marv realized that there was no way out of this, because there's no way they could meet their demands and keep up the business. So they called all the other employees and told them, the senior management have all now quit. And it is now your choice whether you want to stay with us or you want to go. You're free to go and join them. If you want to stay with us, then we'll tell you what's going to happen. We'll let you know how things progress, and then etc. etc. Anyways, that's just the background. So after all of this happening, Marv and Mickey are now traveling back, and Mickey wanted to know why he did that. Why did he cut all of them off, all the senior management, not try and salvage the situation? So this is what he writes in his book, page 208. The only thing Marv ever said to me about the whole affair was that if you let people hold you hostage, they will force you to make terrible decisions and you will lose. You might as well take your bumps up front, at least be so as to at least be in control of your destiny. Who would have believed that just a few months later, one of Marv's senior executives would move the development of the website to New York and relaunch it with a team of less than 40 developers. That new website became the foundation of WEB MD's entire future. So here, and I'll continue with the next paragraph, but here he's saying that he's learning these profound lessons from people, from life, by going through all of these dark clouds that he calls, that will turn into rainbows. But he's going through all of these dark clouds, and he's learning lessons of what it means to be a whole human being, a holistic human being, a true human being who's true to himself and his nature and to God. And then he continues, and this is so powerful, so powerful. If there's one paragraph I take away from this book, this is the one. Again and again, I was seeing that each of these intensely challenging business experiences was very beneficial for my spiritual growth. What? He's saying that these intense business experiences were beneficial for his spiritual growth. What has business got to do with spirit? with spirituality? That's the question I would ask myself. But to him, it's all connected. It's all one. He's been taught life lessons by God, by the universe, by everything through different ways. And to him, he's saying again and again, I was seeing that each of these intensely challenging business experiences was very beneficial for my spiritual growth. I just kept letting go of whatever discomfort got stirred up within me, and inevitably a stronger flow of spiritual energy took its place. This growing strength helped me prepare for my life's next growth experience. What happened when Marv's reorganization team finally got around to take aim at my division? And this is the story I just described before, where he was told he was supposed to let go of some people and he didn't. But this paragraph is so powerful, because it essentially he's telling us that life taught him through his business the things that were in him that weren't there were deficiencies in his soul. There were diseases of his soul, and business, these terrible situations, intense situations, taught him more and more about himself. When he started holding on to things, he realized that this is what's holding me. I need to let go. I need to surrender. I need to just be a human being, not a human doing. And slowly, he would let go whatever life throws at him. And that's progression in your journey. So life throws a challenge at you. You overcome it, and you become a bit stronger, and you realize a bit more about yourself, and you surrender a bit more. Then life comes back again and throws you an even stronger, challenging situation, and you go at it again, and you come out of it even a bit more stronger, a bit more surrendered, and a bit more at peace, because you know, essentially, when you become stronger, then you surrender, and then essentially you get peace. That inner peace that comes in, it's all through surrender. That inner peace is all from surrender. Because when you surrender, you realize, I am not even in control. I know I can control it. I know I can stop this video now. I know that. I know I can chuck the phone across, or chuck the video camera across the wall. I can do that, right? Or I can just leave the house now, or I can come back. I know all of that. But when things happen to me in life, I can't control them. They just happen. And the best solution sometimes is to surrender. And that doesn't mean to just give up and hold your hands up and say, I can't do anything. No. It doesn't mean that. It means you do your best. You try whatever you need to do whatever you need to do. But at the end of the day, you have surrendered to the outcome. So it's not about the outcome. It's about your effort. Of course, it's about your effort. You put in the hard work. You put in the effort. This is what you have to do. But when it comes to the outcomes, you just surrender. Because whatever is meant to be will be. No matter how hard you fight against it, it's going to be. So why not surrender? Because with surrender comes power, and it comes peace. Peace of heart, peace of mind, peace of soul. It's all peace, inner peace. That's what all inner peace is about. When you submit and surrender to the will of God, to what's happening to you, you realize that I can breathe. Things will take care of themselves. I'm not telling myself to be naive or just be blasé about it. No. All I'm saying is things will work out as long as I surrender and I appreciate and know that things are not in my control. So whatever life brings to me, I will take it. And that's where opportunities come in, because as you surrender and are at peace with yourself, you will naturally attract things like a magnet to yourself. And that's where the magic will happen. But it all starts with surrender. So I hope that I've inspired you to read this book, The Surrender Experiment, and I hope it inspires you to surrender yourself so you can get peace. And I hope I will continue to surrender as well, so that I can become a more refined, a better version of myself. And I know that everything is helping me towards that journey. So please read this book if you'd like to. I think it can be a life changer. And yeah, until next time, I'll see you soon.